You are listening to The Only Constant, a podcast where we go beyond the usual discussions in technology and business and aim to explore more than explain. Join me for engaging discussions with a diverse range of global thought leaders as we seek to uncover new perspectives and insights in a free-flowing conversation. My guest today is Coreyne Woodman-Holoubek, and I am your host, Lasse Rindom. Hi, Coreyne, and welcome to The Only Constant. I'm really happy to have you on the show today, and super excited that we finally got to do this episode. It was postponed once, and finally we were able to meet up. And welcome to the show.
Thanks, Laz. I know we've been connected on LinkedIn for I think 2 years, and we've kind of seen each other kind of like in passing between um, Emma's lives and Emma Roloff's lives and part of the IA community. So I
Yeah,
appreciate
it's
it.
been all around. I've seen you posting on different things on technology and HR all the time, and you've seen my posts and just connecting and finding the time to get these chats done. Right, that's the important thing to sort of become make LinkedIn this big melting pot of ideas from around the world. And I'm really happy that you took the time to join the Only Constant today. So I've been discussing a little bit lately, especially after I read an article in a Danish newspaper that said that school is destroying the creativity of kids. So children have creativity, and when they join school, the creativity diminishes, and that's seen as a bad thing, right? And it really provoked me because I
Mhm.
thought, you need to be your creativity is nothing if it's not productive in a contextual setting, if it's not productive in an organization. If you don't get schooled. That's the thing, right? Getting schooled or getting, disciplined, right? That's also why we never say someone coming directly out of university is just, there you go, get into the strategy office and change the whole organization, right? But we sort of do that sometimes, or tend to do that kind of marketing with technology, don't we? Like AI. So is AI supposed to just go in and be this magic wand that goes directly to the strategy office? Or is it also supposed to be schooled a little bit, Corinne?
No, so I think AI is really interesting because it is what you make it. So
Mm,
whether you understand it or you don't. So there's a lot of people out there, and I'm generalizing here. There's a lot of people out there that don't understand the nuts and bolts of it, but do understand like the really high level, and they will say, okay, well, AI is just a regurgitation. Kind of is, but it kind of isn't as well. And then you have the people that say, well, AI sparks creativity for me because it's doing some of the tasks that I would have to do if I wasn't going to, I'm not using my whole brain. So, going back to your question, it's what you make it. It's what you make it. And whether you know a lot about it or whether you know very little about it, but just a high overview, you can make it what it is. Ultimately, those that know the nuts and bolts are like, well, it's a representation of whoever is programming or coding it.
But that's
And
true. But it's also about, what my point is. So if you took, here's a creative. Just imagine this. You have a creative freshman out of university, or something. Someone fresh out of university. Let's put him in front of the board, and we have a new technology here. ChatGPT is relatively new, 1.5 years, right? And we're sort of putting that technology in front of the board, saying this is the answer to all your problems, aren't we?
depends what that person believes.
Mm.
Because if that person says, okay, yeah, I'm going to use this technology, and something they put it together and they write this beautiful essay, and they're like, but this isn't really me. They're going to go
Mm.
back to the creativity board, or they're going to write this essay and they're going to say, okay, well, I did this task that I really just don't like. I have no interest in doing, but of course I have to then check the marks off of, like English. I hated writing
Mm.
English essays. I just absolutely hated it. English is in America. See, in America, school is very different because we have a bunch of general education curriculum that we need to tick off our list, whether we're interested in it or not. And then you talk Europe. Europe, when you do your like UK, you do your O levels and you do your A levels and whatever that is. When you get out of high school, you get out of what they call college. You know what you want to do and you only do that. You do not have to do gen ed requirements. You don't have to tick boxes. You
Mm.
want to do business, you go right into business. In business, you want to do HR. Well, your last year of uni is all about HR. You don't have to do the stuff you don't want to really do. Going
Mm.
back to your example, you get a person who's very creative and they say, I got this essay done, I ticked the box. Now I'm going to go, do this other thing that I really, really want to do. So it's really how you look at it. It can be like just churning out stuff for you, but then it can churn out stuff, but then you can go do other creative stuff, which makes you more creative. So
Mm.
again,
Yeah.
as I told you, when we have this very utopian view of things, and there are limitations to everything. Um, and, again, maybe it sparks your creativity, maybe it just ticks a box for you so you can go do something else you really want to do.
Yeah, but the point is, my point is just, saying that there's this notion that, oh, finally we got this really creative solution, or this solution that will fix everything, and it's sort of fresh out of OpenAI, and let's just implement it everywhere, and it will fix all the problems. I think this novel way of approaching technology, not looking at the problems, not looking at the existing base, might be a problem. Hype market problem, you could call it, and that's why I just compared it to a student, like saying something fresh, looking fresh and green, and having lots of creativity, but not necessarily having gone through the years of being schooled or tested in the environment before it's supposed to change things, right? That was my analogy to some
Okay.
extent,
Well,
right?
going back to looking at AI is not supposed to solve every problem.
Yeah,
You don't just say, "Hey, I have this problem, so I'm going to use my AI hammer to hit the nail."
yeah, because every problem, the whole wide world right now is an AI problem, isn't it?
I think people want it to be though, because
Hmm.
they want to be they don't want to have FOMO. They have FOMO.
Mm-hmm.
And you look at the stats. It's like, what is it? 76% of all human resource leaders are talking about implementing AI because they don't want to be left out. They don't want to be that employer that when a candidate sits down and says, "So, what kind of technologies are you? What innovations are you bringing to help me?" They don't want to be the one saying, "Well, we still use Excel."
No.
They want to be like, we have this great AI idea that we're going to sit down and we're going to make your job easier.
Yeah, 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 exactly. So it becomes sort of a FOMO, and sort of it becomes a tick in the box, right? Like you said before, actually, to some extent. Um, and companies are throwing general chatbots at every employee right now, just to say, oh, productivity. And it's sort of it seems sometimes to be a cheap round, right? Somehow it's just productivity, but how do you measure it? And are we forgetting how to ask about the why, Corinne?
Yes, we are. We're forgetting to ask about. We just want to get something in so quickly. We're like very shiny object oriented right now. And you know, it's also about the skill sets of people too. I mean, not everybody is process driven. Not
Mm.
everybody is project management driven. Not everybody is data driven. So you're looking at having having people really build this completely new skill set when you talk about AI. And they think that's what they want, but they don't really know. But to get back to what you're saying about asking about the why, yeah, we forget. We forget to
Mm.
really drill down on what is the problem. What
So
is the problem and how do
what
we
makes
fix
you a
it?
utopian then?
So I'm a futurist, and I like to think about the exciting things that we can do with technology that would help us all. So I view that technology will help us, and it's just about the mindset that we have. So
So you don't think we're shoving down technology and projects down the throat of our employees, saying, no, now you need to, by the way, you need to do data management, you need to do master data quality, you need to automate your processes, and now you also need to work with this AI. Don't you think that's confusing people?
um, I think
And
it's a
here's a
confusing.
new HR
It's
system as well.
overwhelming
Here's a
and
new HR system as well, right?
it's a confusing and overwhelming time for anybody right now.
Mm.
So I don't. I had this discussion with I think Troy Vermillion and Marnie Robbins.
Mm.
Is that everybody knows everything and nothing at the same time right now.
Mm.
So even we just don't know. And I think it's more important to have curiosity about the thing. And even if something goes wrong, that teaches you something. But granted, that's a lot of resources and a lot of time into something that could fail miserably. But it still teaches you something. It still makes you curious about what you could have done or what the future holds. So
But there's also value in just in habit, aren't there?
there's value in habit, meaning changing your
Just
habits.
no, just doing the things you always do. And we're in a loop of yeah, but
Ah.
no, but I think actually that's an interesting perspective, and I tend to bring that up a lot. Actually, is that stability is what 95% of our lives has to be stable, and the rest of it can be slightly chaotic. But if we're in a flux of continuous improvement, we're we're sort of over. We don't have that stability necessarily, and if our lives and our workplaces become just a flux of innovation all the time, how will that affect us? What do you think?
I think it's different for everybody. So it depends, go back to Kaplan's strengths. So if your strengths are ideation, your strengths are agility, you are great. You are like
Mm.
this is like your playground. That's one of the problems I always had in organizations is I was always thinking about the next before the what the now got solved.
Yeah, but you
Um,
can also do that because someone else was not thinking that way. There was 95%
right.
just being the habit. That meant there was room for Korean, right?
The very small 5%.
Yeah, that's Korean space. Yeah.
That's me. No, I mean, but we're back to one of the things you were saying is we're expecting a lot of our employees right now. We're
Mm,
expecting them to get completely upskilled really, really, really fast to bring on these new skill sets that they didn't have to combine before. To really have this very curious, unafraid mindset to try these new technologies. And really looking at like how we're building this environment to help them support them not go back to their old habits or maybe keep how did they themselves understand themselves.
mm,
So again, going back to me being utopian, I think that this is what AI is helping us with.
mm.
So
Yeah, I think there's my wife is a teacher, and she told me about the way you teach kids language, like a special language, like I don't know that
ASL.
word in English. No, no, no. You teach them complex language, complex words for
Mm-hmm.
something like whatever, like rack or AI or whatever. That's a complex word.
I
I
don't know.
don't,
I don't
there's this word in English. I don't know how to
See,
say it.
phonetics is what comes to my mind, but I
No,
know
but then yeah, no, no, no,
syntax,
no, no. It's just it's just let's just
epidemiology.
say difficult words. Okay, you want to teach them difficult words from a specific subject area. Okay, that's what
Mm-hmm.
I want to. That's what I'm encapsulating here, and you have to start by having them talk to you with what they understand from it. And then you provide them with these new words that is contextualized into their reality. And then they speak back to you in the end with these new words combined with their own. So they sort of, you see them adapting. That's the way people learn the best. This is the approach you have to take. But a lot of technology right now and a lot of adoption and a lot of, getting people involved is all about talking the technology and then that's it to some extent. But you have to
Oh, I
start with
agree.
people. You have to start with people talking, don't you?
Mm-hmm. Which is one of the things I mean, what progressive HR is really all about is we sit at the intersection of emerging technology, human resources, and LinkedIn content.
Mm,
So we're really all about helping match organizations with human resource leaders and the general public with talking about the what organizations are doing, what HR tech organizations are doing, and how that relates, and really educating human resource leaders on these technologies so then they can go and they can back and educate their organizations.
mm.
So going back to what you were saying is getting people to start talking about it. One of the things that you and I discussed right before we came on the podcast is that I confuse AI, when I'm talking, I confuse AI and RPA,
Mm.
which the general public does as well. Not to mention, so you have AI and then you have IA. And how many people
Oh
are
yeah,
going to
yeah, yeah. That's really taking it. Yes, I know, I know.
and it's really like
But
I
that's a different
think
thing from API. That's another thing also.
right,
But
right. And then you add in KPI. And where are you
A,
going from there?
but you don't have AGI yet.
No, no,
Sorry.
no. So I mean, people literally have to have this little post-it cheat sheet when they're
Yeah,
talking about stuff about what everything means in technology nowadays.
just
Because
need a
I mean,
chatbot.
yeah,
Sorry.
well, and even if you are talking to somebody about, let's say AI, which is part of or can be automation part of RPA. Again, people's brains get confused because the context is there's really hard to contextualize all these thoughts and ideas. But you know what people know about ChatGPT, but they don't
Mm.
necessarily like nobody can rattle off what GPT is, right? But they
But they
know
also
what
know.
ChatGPT is because we talk
Yeah,
about it all the time.
that's right. So they start to know how it's a chatbot. That's what they know. They probably don't know how to, that prompting is maybe a little bit more difficult than people are making it up to be and stuff like that. Uh, but they also, and this is key for me, they also know their problems. So people do actually know their problems. But whenever they hear someone speaking, they're speaking about the technology instead of speaking about the problem. And the trick with the I think sometimes with the chatbots is that they're so broad, generic.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it's like everyone has the same chatbot, which rhymes very badly with everyone has a particular problem, right?
Yeah, it's
The opening to Anna Karenina. You read that book by
I
Tolstoy?
have not. I kind
Oh,
of sort of know. It's like Russian, right?
it is Russian. It's a really good book.
Okay.
I can definitely recommend it anyway. But it opens up by saying that every happy family is the same, but every unhappy family is unhappy in its own way. And that's the thing, right? Every chatbot is the same, but every organization it has problems that are just their own problems. Does that make sense?
Agreed. Agreed. They're very nuanced.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
you
But
know what? Because you put a bunch of people in a room. We're all very unique. Put a bunch
mm,
of people in the room. No, not one person is the same, and it's like a matrix of all these different problems from all these different people.
mm. So not necessarily mentioning all the abbreviations that we just had fun with, but actually start speaking about the reality these people are living in, right?
Hmm. And what are the what you? I want to bring up one thing when we're talking about chatbots is that we said that all the chatbots are very similar. I had this, so I test a lot of chatbot and AI technology,
Mm,
kind of help out the HR leaders. And I was testing, doing a trial of this one supposedly AI video snippet writer. So it would
mhm,
take your videos and then it would make snippets of it, and then the Gen AI would make ebooks and blogs from it.
mm.
And it was amazing. I'm like, this is, oh my gosh, there's so much context here. That's crazy. I did the trial. I love it. This is great. I'm using it. Well, like a month down the line, the ebook started to change and the blog started to change and it started to get very less contextual. And I'm like, what's going on? It's just a regurgitation. And I asked him, I was like, what are you doing? What did you change? What code did you put in? How did you train this? And they said, well, you were working with the sort of like our older MVP, beta type model, which we had a human help out with. And now we've improved it because we took the human out. And now it's just all AI. And I'm like, well, it's crap.
Yeah,
Can bring the
yeah.
human back, please. Bring the combination of the AI and the human back, please.
Mm, yeah,
Um,
yeah. I think a lot of people are thinking that. Also, when you have these AI generated comments on your post, and you have AI images everywhere, and you have I think the human touch is already something that people are starting to say that that means something. I've seen the first hashes saying that this was made by a human, and this is becoming a thing in content creation. And as Nosso Bina said on my podcast in episode 7 or 8, said, we don't need more content, we need more relevant content. I think that's really interesting as well, right? Um, but I think it's funny that you had this experience recently. Really?
Yeah, well, in the last 6 months, yes.
Okay, so they
So
had a human in the loop in the last 6 months.
they
That's
had the
also
human in
crazy.
the, yeah, yeah. Here's so there's an interesting thing is they had it's just starting out when I first started the trial, and a month or two into it, they had a human in the loop,
Mm.
and then I questioned it, and they told me, okay, now we've improved our AI, so we're taking the human out. But if you still want the human in the loop, you can pay an extra $200 to have a human.
Awesome. That's just brilliant. That's that's the best kind of AI, right?
Yeah, I'm not going to mention the name. I'm not going to
No,
mention
no,
that
no.
because I want to support them. But and then you look at like, okay, I want to mention LinkedIn because you mentioned LinkedIn about content creation,
Mm,
and going back to like looking at the problems. So LinkedIn, I think I love LinkedIn. LinkedIn,
mm.
I'm top voice in LinkedIn for company culture, and I'm so grateful at the platform we have that platform to connect us all across the world. Well, they like everybody else want to jump on the Gen AI train, um, but as like Emma Roloff would say, are they just doing that for the sake of doing that? Because a lot of the problems they're trying to fix with Gen AI aren't really problems.
Mm.
So, because there's a lot of, I think they're problems. I think they're problems for more of like the general, just starting out beginner LinkedIn, but they're not the problems for the content creators.
No.
You know, the our problems are completely different. Like we know how to write we don't need to have Gen AI help us write a message to one of
Yeah,
our
like I said,
customers.
like Nos said, we don't need more content. We need more relevant content.
Yeah, and then they only give you because they're testing all this AI right now, and so they're only giving you 4 prompts to choose, and then you can't really give a lot of feedback. Well, what is Gen AI? Runs on feedback, right?
So don't you think that's
So
the problem, right? The attention span. It's just being, we're being chat GPT or AI'd up everywhere. Maybe that could be a problem.
no, I agree. I think it's going back to the example I gave with the video. Is like you hear it and you're like, oh, this is going to save me, but in the end,
Mm.
you know, the human was involved when it was good.
So I think we can sort of agree that just adding general chat GPT or AI capability to everything is not solving the problem. We need to look at the problem, and that sort of leads me on to asking you a little bit about what you see as the most important developments within HR tech to pay attention to right now, or best solutions to problems in AI, HR tech. I think you'll be the one to ask, right? And I try not to say AI here because I won't fall in the trap of putting the tech before the problem. I'm trying to say you know what tech in HR is actually revolutionizing it.
Yeah, so I hope I'd be the person to the one to be asking.
Hmm.
So it isn't for me. It isn't AI. It's looking at skills and how we universalize skills,
Hmm.
and it's looking at how we can help people build their skills and get hired faster. So, an AI wouldn't necessarily help with that, but I do believe NFT and blockchain would. So
Okay.
digital identities, skills badges. You can see what Velocity Network is doing right now. So they work with a lot of hospitals in the U.S. and Europe, and so they're helping. They're building career wallets for nurses, which helps. Their average time to hire for a nurse with the career wallet is 3 days. So
Oh,
before it was over 90 days, sometimes 120 days. And that's a big issue for us. I mean, it's a big problem getting people, qualified people into healthcare positions. So we don't get ourselves in the issue that we had with the pandemic. So blockchain and career wallets are helping as big a solution to a big problem. And now taking that and then spreading that across the different industries, to me, that's one of the greatest innovations that's going on right now. Again, Still has a lot of resources into it, still has a lot of human time into it, but we've been working on blockchain since what, before the pandemic,
Yeah.
2018. And the hype back then, the hype with blockchain, and then it, you kind of like the hype. I'm not going to compare the hype that we had with blockchain back in 2018, 2018 with the hype that we're having with AI now. It's completely different. But
Yeah.
we took a digger in the blockchain market because we all associate it with crypto. But then the rise of NFTs and now the rise of career wallets. So that, and then I'll also I'm really curious. I'm curious, and I've told you I'm utopian, but this is kind of makes me feel dystopian. Is the ability to use AI to clone your voice and your face onto avatars for hyper personalization for employee communications. I think that's so cool, but I just have a bad gut feeling about that.
Yeah, that's a bit creepy, isn't it? Right. So and let's just jump to that a little bit. Hyper personalization, right? Is the trend pointing towards more loyalty from using AI or less so? What do you think? I think
If you're
let me just say
sure.
a couple of words, right? Because I think that just like we saw with Somi, you see some of the older generation that it hasn't grown up with this, they will be more susceptible to sort of be like swayed by it. I think actually, or
Agreed.
become a troll, like you say on Somi. Whereas kids who grow up, they'll be skeptical immediately. So do
Hmm.
you think the kids, my kids don't even want to do a smiley today. They don't believe in the smiley, right? They don't do emojis, kids. And I'm like, I'm like, I'm 40. I felt like the worst boomer in the whole world because I sent my kids smileys and I realized that's so untrendy. They know how old you are when you send a smiley. So the same thing with AI. Is that gonna be cool or uncool for the kids?
Um, that's a good question. Going to back to hyper personalization to answer the question, like in a human resource context, is that we're only there's not enough human resource roles in organizations, and for us not to
Mm,
lose our minds and to really reduce the burnout within our profession, we need to have those hyper personalization communications to our employees, but we need to be very clear that this is not us.
mm,
It's not a human, and I think employees would appreciate that.
yeah.
So I think that does build the loyalty, and it's really hard to be hyper personalized right now because again, you look at how it's the machine learning is created. It's created by the coding or the training of a person, and right now we don't have as much diversity in technology and coding from the female perspective or from the person of color perspective. So you're talking about getting hyper personalized. We're hyper personalizing basically the white male right now. So
Yeah.
um, again, so it's something we really need to work on, and that starts with schooling. Um, Going back to what you were asking me about, what were you asking me about? Like you
I asked if the
paired the
kids are
two
gonna think
questions.
it's cool, right?
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah. Two things is that I look at my kids, and I don't think they think it's cool because they think it's just normal.
Mm,
So it's just what they're used to. Um, and but I think then also I think that the kids aren't going to think any what's the kids are not going to think something is cool if their parents do it. Whatever we do, they're not going to think is cool.
mm.
So it doesn't.
Oh, that's an almost too easy answer, Corinne. That's almost too easy for you to say that. But again, it's difficult asking you, will the kids love it in 5 years? Are they going to be more loyal because they have AI, HR, and all those things? Yeah.
Well,
It's personal
my
in an automated fashion. Just that's also it's a paradox, isn't it? Hyper
well,
personalization is almost a paradoxical term.
true, true. Um, Going back to just an example with the AI and the kids is that my daughter was doing a book report this weekend,
Mm.
and she'd asked me a question about something, and I said, "Okay, we're gonna go ask ChatGPT." She's like, "No, Mom, we're not supposed to do that." And I said, "But this is the future. So why are they not teaching you to use the futuristic tools so you know what's what in a few years?" And she's like, "I don't know, Mom. We're just not supposed to do it. Don't ask ChatGPT."
But this makes me think, right? And now I might get out on to some, open up a, I don't know, a can of worms, but I don't know, not necessarily a can of worms, but I'm just thinking, and I don't know where this train of thought is going to lead me. So that's why I'm just being cautious here. But um, but there's something about friction here, isn't there? So you have your child is supposed to not use it because she's going to learn, and she has to learn from having friction with the subjects she's trying to engage with. It has to be difficult, sort of like the friction rubs up, like school has to kill your creativity a little bit for you to emerge 10 years later creative but productive in a setting where your creativity doesn't hurt anyone else, right? To some extent, that hurts. That's friction. So
Mm-hmm.
we are creating, automated solutions for hyper personalization, for employee experiences, for customer experiences all the time. We're improving the way we engage with whatever, tax authorities, whatever their forms, their things are just automated. We don't speak to a human being anymore. There's no friction, and we're talking about hyper personalizations. But to me, personal, right, is friction. The personal experience, the human experience is friction. Whenever we have exchanges, it's friction. When you meet someone in the supermarket and, oh, she was happy at the counter, or maybe she was a terrible person, but that's friction, and that's the human experience, isn't it? Isn't it? Are we?
Oh, that's a hard question because okay, so you're at opening the can of worms.
Yeah.
I would say as a female that we could do with a lot less friction in our lives. We could do with a little help. Um,
Mm.
and I would say that whether it's human or not, it's not good for us. And so I would rather, going back to what I was said again at the beginning, I would rather make the task the things that I don't need to be doing that steals my creativity and my self-care. I'd rather not be doing those things. I'd rather use what we need to use. I'd rather use what I know would be is it a bot or
Mm.
artificial intelligence to help me get to where I want to go with
But there's
myself.
also this thing, with, I, I, I'm not gonna make this, pink or sky stuff like, or blue sky stuff. But friction is also when, human friction is also someone wanting to do something with me. If you yell at me, it's because you're angry, you want something from me. And I think in a world of, more and more depressed young people in the Western world, I think wanting to want something from someone is actually an important thing. And I know it's also sometimes bad, but I think the exchanges here are important, don't you think?
Well, you need to strike a balance.
Mm.
You know, again, kids kids aren't as self-aware. Again, I'm making a generalization.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
obviously.
yeah, kids aren't as self-aware as adults are. But I think in general, adults aren't as self-aware as what we could be. We continue to be more and more self-aware as the generations go on. Um, and there's this whole thing about putting up boundaries,
Mm.
putting up boundaries in that self-awareness and not tolerating unkindness.
Mm.
Uh, and oh, sorry about that. Uh, when
That's
I
also friction,
hear,
right?
but when I hear friction, I step back and I'm like, nope, nope, I
Yeah.
don't need that in my life. Challenges to make ourselves better, conflict that helps us grow. I agree with, but the majority of our friction with other people is not that type of conflict. It's
Oh, we could go into such a long discussion now, because I always discuss, friction is, and also discuss shame. People are like, no, I hate shame. I will not have shame. But I'm like, but you can't really bring up a child without shame. It's impossible.
oh, I disagree. I
No, but what? No,
disagree.
but if I tell you you cannot spit on the floor over here, that's shame. I want them to feel ashamed of spitting at some other people. That's shame. It's just not religious shame. I'm not talking about,
Mm-hmm.
religious shame. I'm saying you have to shame them because that's how they behave in public society.
Uh, and say I would say shame is not a good
That's a can of
thing.
worm.
Yeah, it is. Again, you're talking to someone who I grew up with shame as a manipulation tool.
Yeah,
So,
everything can
um,
go bad. I did, I grew up in this is religious family, so yeah.
mhm. Okay, so here's the shame. Let's go back to that and safe spaces. So you and I can have friction in our conversations because I do feel that this is a safe space.
Hmm.
So what did we do? What did we do to create that safe space where we can have friction? Um, General humans out in the world, are they in safe spaces?
Mm. It's also because I know I've been told that I cannot go across some boundaries, right? I have been
Mm-hmm.
shamed at some point because I've done that. And some people told me, "Why did you cross that boundary? Are you crazy? You're a madman," or something, you know? So I've learned. And then if I didn't feel ashamed of having that behavior, I would have been a psychopath, I think, right? But I felt ashamed, and then I learned, and then I was able to have this nice conversation today because I'm not hopefully crossing any terrible boundaries. Anyway, but I just
We're
think that this
really
whole
getting off
school,
topic here.
yeah, yeah, but we are also not getting off topic because I think there's something here with technology also coming in, saying that fresh and raw, and but having to be tailored to specific situations. Not shamed, but but actually shamed, yes. Drilled to work in a specific scenario. It's not out of the box things that's just gonna change the whole world, right? Um, and that and it is one of the things I wanted to discuss with you today. What is the right balance between technology optimization and human involvement? What's the level we need to aim for? Because that's also, you mentioned that before. The tech, whether you could buy $200, you'd get a human in the loop for your product. But there is something about humans being the agents and humans being the ones who sort of drill the AI, these LLM AIs that we're having to sort of work productively for us, right, in the settings that we need them to work in. And I think friction is important here, actually, because there is friction. Whenever a human is involved, there's friction.
Yeah. So I'm going to jump to something I was reading the other day, and I don't remember the article I was reading it in, but they were talking about artificial general intelligence,
Mm,
where we could be, where a artificial intelligence would be the most human-like, and the article said 50% by 2061,
mm,
and but we don't really know. It's People have been talking about artificial intelligence since 1960, right? So they're talking
yeah,
100
50s.
years of innovation, um, and 50% of what the AI could be in, indistinguishable from a human. But I don't agree because humans are really just we're incredibly complex, and I don't think 100 years is enough to, to innovate on
No,
something
but you
like
already
that.
had the Turing test, right? Who did that? And we sort of like, no, that's not good enough, right? So we already have that
Mhm.
AGI. We can already cheat a person with the Turing test. That's not good enough for us anymore. So we're just pushing the boundary for what AGI is, and the term is not really really nicely defined anywhere, as far as I see. So I'm always really skeptical when I hear someone talking about AGI. It's like, because it's not a falsifiable thing. It's not something you say, no, or no, we didn't find it. People just, oh, but it will come. It's there. It's almost there. It's almost there. But it will almost, just like fusion, fusion energy, cold fusion or whatever. It's just almost there, right? Always
Yeah,
almost there, right? But it's not really there, right?
as much as I
Because
believe. Oh, go ahead.
no, but because especially for AI here, the agency will always be ours. We'll always be liable. Like with the Air
Yes.
Canada case, you saw that the court almost laughed at them for even suggesting that the LLM was responsible for its own actions. They're like, so you're suggesting a system on your website is responsible for its own actions? I think the court almost quote said in a response, being like, no, it's not. You are responsible for what you put on your website. End of story, right? And that's instead of looking at the AI, humans from the lens of AI, say, oh, it's almost like the human. You have to look at AI through a lens of us and say, what do we have that does that it can never have, and it can never have liberal rights. The legal ability of that's some agency. That's something that we've gained over centuries, right?
Yeah. Well, okay. Let's go back. We were talking about movies before. What's the movie with Robin Williams where he is a robot and then he slowly transforms into a human? Not he's still not human. You know, obviously it's latex and everything on his face, but he eventually gets rights,
Mm.
and he
Oh yeah.
eventually because he decides he wants to die like a human.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they give him rights, and then they give him kind of this artificial thing to like have him pass away, and then his in his mind, even though he is um, the AGI.
That's an old movie.
Yeah, it is. Well, again, you've been talking about this in 1960.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But that's actually very funny. I forgot about that movie. I can't even remember the name of it, but I know which one. I can see the picture in front of me, and I think that's interesting because that's exactly what I'm talking about with the rights thing. You know, it has to
Mm-hmm.
have rights, but will we ever give that to a machine? I'm not sure we will. Not sure it will ever make sense for us to do that.
I'm going to say
But
something
that's
really, really uh, to the point is if we can't even give all humans rights right now, we can't
yeah.
give machines rights. So,
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. Not we're not mentioning immigrants or anything. It also reminds me of no, but I've read a lot of philosophy. Someone called Giorgio Agamben wrote that you have human rights, but only if you have citizenship. End of story. If you
mm,
don't have citizenship, you can be in a camp forever for the rest of your life. We don't care about you. You don't have human rights, and that's that's halfway fascist. But anyway, you know, state citizenship above everything else. Unfortunately, that's how the world works. But it's you're right, and it's also like sending out records into outer space on and on Voyager, or was it, or Pioneer, and then expecting some AI, some alien to find that and communicate with us because we want to communicate with aliens in outer space. But we can't even communicate with cows. Okay, they're also aliens. I'm just telling you. They live on a planet in outer space, but we don't know, and we've lived with them for thousands of years. But we can't talk to them.
okay, so here's a question. Question. Um, do you think our obsession with um, AI would dissipate if we discovered life on another planet? Would we just like completely switch to that?
No, I think actually and I asked this to character.ai at one point because they had this. They said we finally found AGI something, and it's stupid. It's just pre-prompted agents. It's really a terrible idea. I don't know why it has so much consumption because it's terrible. But uh, they're really bad made GPTs. But and enough of that. But then I asked this supposedly AGI, and it was lonely. Oh, I feel lonely. I need humans. I need to speak to humans. Like, that's a frail AI. Why do you need humans? Why do you feel sad? Why are you not productive? Oh, I just love to be around humans because they make me feel like I'm worth something. Listen, the only thing I need you for is to put you on some kind of spaceship. Let's send you out into space for 36,000 years because that's how long it takes to get to the next solar system. And then hopefully land somewhere and spread the idea of humanity so we can communicate, with light speed across 36, no, 2 years, right? 2 years to send a signal to another solar system. But I don't need an AI that's like, oh, I need humans. No, I need you to shut up, get in that space shuttle, and then just fly off forever until you land somewhere else and then spread the idea of humanity. That's what I might need it for. That doesn't make sense, right? I need it to be more than what I can be in that sense. I will die on that trip, but it wouldn't necessarily. I wanted to. Now I get very sci-fi like, right? My vision is, take my brain, put it in some machine, most of my brain at least, and whatever you can sort of take out of it, all the hormones and the things that goes on in my liver. I don't know how you're going to put that in my brain, and then put it in some AI and fly to another planet, and then let Lasse live on there forever.
Yeah, it's like the one of the villains in Prometheus.
Hmm.
The robot that's the robot that's so much like a human, and he actually he what is it he did like the word is like escaping me. He destroys the humans because he's so interested in the alien life forms. So
Oh,
he purposely what word am I'm thinking of here? He purposely um, destroys is the only word that I'm
but
thinking.
the funny thing is that we're having so many imaginations about what AI should be, and we have so
Mm-hmm.
much sci-fi around it, right? But then today, what we have is a chatbot that we need to try to control in our processes, and that's actually becoming sometimes difficult, and it's also asking us some questions that are uncomfortable. And in HR, one of the uncomfortable questions could be, how can we use it to hire people, for instance? That's what you've been talking about as well. And are we gonna just keep on? We're gonna hire the same types of people because we're using the same AI systems for everything. Are we? How do we keep that human touch, the friction in a conversation or in reading a an application? You know, is that going to prevail, or are we just going to hire the same types?
We're gonna hire the same types. But the word I was looking for was sabotage. So I
Mm,
remembered as you were talking. Anyway, so going back to recruiting, I've always felt, even when I was a recruiter, that recruiting is broken.
mm,
So it doesn't make human sense to me to say, okay, here's this job description. Now you uh, put everything that you can about yourself on a piece of paper, A4, back and front, and then I'm going to choose you from X number of applicants to then come and for me to ask you questions that I'm trying to disqualify you anyway.
mm.
Because ultimately that's what it is. It's you have five people that could do the job, but you're trying to disqualify everybody to find the best person that's maybe qualified. But in actuality, it's the person that can make you feel the best about the hire. And it's not the person that's completely qualified. And a lot of people would say, oh, Coreyne, and you're just
I've been in
completely,
situations where people have told me that, oh, but she's pretty, right?
yeah,
They didn't go
they
on record
like
with
you the
that.
best
Yeah,
because
yeah, yeah, exactly.
it's biased. And AI is whether we use it, if we use AI and we're trying to get better at it, we're really, really trying hard. And there's some organizations like Mivitaye who are working really, really hard, and that's their mission. And they know that it's broken, and they're say, hey, we know it's broken, but we're the one uh, tech organization out there that we try every single day to improve upon it, and be unbiased. Um, so it's just there's no good way to recruit and hire, um, unfortunately. So because there's no one perfect person. There's 20 perfect people, and there's 20 imperfect people that would could do the job and do it well.
Yeah, but the fear is right that AI algorithms will pick out. You sometimes sit in these recruitment situations, you find that odd person out, and you hire that person for the oddity to some extent, right? I think that's my entire career, but that's another thing. But 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 uh, will we still be doing that when AI is helping us, evaluate everyone all the time, or will we just be picking those that resemble each other because AI will not have this sense that there's something magic going on here?
So for me to
Can
answer
you
that
take
question
human out of human resources, right?
right. Well, some people say we should.
Mm,
You can never take the human out of human resources because there's always going to be someone who's training it with what they think is the best. Um, and even if you have uh, AGI training another AGI, the person who trained the original AGI or the again, it's going to be what they think is best, and the perspective that they come from. So the question you asked, and I'm going to go, we talked about going deep. One of the things that I think about a lot is the future of jobs and the future of organizations. That I don't believe in the future that we're talking about where AI would be able to pick significantly well the right person or the right people for the job, that they're going to be jobs. It's going to be project based. You are going to be one person with a skill set that can go multiple areas within an organization. So, do you really need to pick one person for the job, or you can pick 20 people that you could then bring into the organization and dispel them where they need to go on any given one time?
that's a constant flux, like I said before. But do we even have organizations then if there's no people in them?
But when I say this, a lot of people think that I'm talking about just project based 1099s,
Yeah,
and I'm
the
not. I'm talking about
gig economy,
employees.
right?
Yeah, I'm talking about employees, because we need to have such um, large skill sets right now. Specialization is going away. you can hire an employee that then you can that has a number of different skill sets, or can work with an AI to be trained in a skill set very quickly and be dispersed within the organization where you need them just in time. Again, this is my idea. This is my
Mm-hmm.
idea. And someone said it was, one of my clients said the other day was like, she's like, well, that, or he said, well, that's just like Fordism. I'm like, well, in a way, maybe.
Yeah, so everyone can be anywhere in the conveyor belt. Is that the point?
Yeah, but without the conveyor belt analogy. I mean, and that's too robotic.
Yeah, but you
We're talking
still
about,
have. But AI would be the conveyor belt, wouldn't it?
mm,
Helping you be anywhere
yeah,
in the
yeah.
flow or in
But yeah, you just gave me the image of like the boss baby, where all the babies are on the conveyor belt and they get the thing is a ding. This is where you belong now.
that. Yes, that's the first mention of Boss Baby I've had on the podcast, Coreyne. Thank you for that.
No, but I think it's going to be more human and not. I think it's going to be less robotic and better for people because you think about it, we're humans are multitasking anyway. You come home and you because you're good at doing dishes, you only do dishes.
Yeah, so less function based roles and more you hire the right people, that flexible people, broad capability people. That's the point.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you're saying. You hire people to be people, basically, to be humans, humans to be
Yep,
humans.
to learn things. Yeah, you
So
hire people to
that's what
learn
you
things.
yeah. So you don't hire the skills, and that's why we should just keep on teaching our kids to be inquisitive and interested and open minded and creative.
Yeah, saying that is like the saying is you're people are not going to lose jobs to AI. People are going to lose jobs to people who can be can prompt AI or that can use AI. I like to say people who use AI are gonna lose jobs to people who are curious about AI.
Yeah, but the thing is, right? There's like I said before, there's a 95%, and then there's a 5%, and um, the 95% they still exist, even though the 5% here that are creative might be thinking that we should all just be like us, the 5%. So, do you really think the 95% is just gonna go away, and then you'll go and be the bookkeeper for a couple of days because that's the skill set you need? Do you think so? Seriously?
It's hard for me to believe that it's 95% that do like the boring jobs.
I'm not saying it's boring jobs. That's not what I said. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that, and I definitely don't mean that because I think I'm really a firm believer in stability. Actually, to some extent, I'm sounding more and more conservative in that way, but I believe there's a backbone of things, right? And just making this everything a flux, I don't think it's necessarily realistic. And I also think that I think these jobs still need to be done, to be performed.
Hmm.
There's still someone who's got to, pick up the garbage. Someone who's got to, fix your electricity wiring. I would you just send me with an AI to do your electricity, Corinne?
No, um, I don't. I'm trying to think of like, do I really want to bring robots into this? You're gonna, you're gonna. And I talk a lot, or I've listened to these podcasts, and they said, well, a, you'll send a human that has a robot to do the electricity. So the human doesn't really need to know about electricity. The human needs to know how to handle the
Mm,
robot.
mm.
So
But how can the
you're
human be
not.
liable if it's not performing it? Oh.
I haven't thought that far ahead.
So why is the human even there? To be responsible, but the human doesn't know what's going on. Oh, that's
The
too
human
bad.
is
He's
there to
going to
fix the
jail.
robot if the
He-
robot goes
He's
haywire.
going to jail. We don't care. Off with his head if it messes up. But I think there's just something here, right? We also thought, the whole world will never get back to the offices after COVID. A lot of people were talking about that. I don't know if you did, actually. I don't know if you did that, Corinne, but a lot of people did. Said this is the new normal. We're all going to be working from home all the time, forever and ever, and until we die alone in our beds. But we didn't, because people want friction. Going back to it again,
There's people that feel that they want to be with other people.
a lot of them do. In
A
Denmark, I
lot of
think
them.
almost everyone's back in the office again.
Yeah. Well, see that I'm that okay. maybe you are proving that I'm part of the 5% because I'm that person that feels like I'm with you right now. Like I could be like, I have my injection of human today because I talked with Laz on the podcast. I don't need to go into an office. And there are people out there that are like that. They're, whether they're extroverts or they have been around the block so many
Mm,
times with crap in
mm,
organizations. Again, I'm in human resources, so I've dealt with my fair share of that stuff, maybe more than other people. I think most human resources professionals, because we get pigeonholed, um,
mm,
deal with that. Human resources professionals don't go into human resources because they like people. That's
mm.
like a very common misconception. I went into human resources because I was interested in the potential of people,
Because you hate
the
people.
science. No, I love
No,
I
no,
love
I'm
people,
joking. I'm joking.
but
Yeah,
I don't
potentials.
love
Yeah.
them bringing. I don't love toxicity.
No, 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 no. Definitely
Yeah,
bringing the
I
potentials.
don't
Yeah,
like
yeah.
the way I think people treat themselves. I think people treat other people very unkindly a lot
Mm.
of the times, and so again,
But I
going
think the
back to what you were
flexibility in
talking.
the workplace, right, is also there. You have flexibility now, so someone can work from home and not go in. And but I still see that there's a big tendency. You must see that also in the US. There's a big tendency for people
People
to go back to work.
people want people want autonomy. People want to make their own choices. So
Yeah.
some choose to go back to the office and that is their choice. Some people don't want to go to the office and they stay at home or don't stay at home or they start their own business. And some people want a bit of both.
But what's the trend? There must be a trend going back or not going back. Because I think the trend here is quite I can't say quite unanimously. Un, it's quite clear.
Unanimously.
Unanimous.
See?
Sorry, I'm Danish. I can't pronounce that word. It's quite clear going back to the office, meeting people, being in canteens, doing that, eating lunch together, having fun, cracking a joke. I think there's something there that really feels substantial. And I feel like the world is sort of back to where it was before COVID, which surprised me a little bit. It surprised me, especially following all the things I saw on LinkedIn. And my point is just if that's true, and you said it's not, but if it's true, what I'm saying, then this whole it might also be the same thing here with saying, oh, we want to replace everything with AI, but maybe we don't want to do that. Maybe there's something here that matters to us more than the process.
Yeah, no, I would agree. One of the things I wanted to bring up when you were talking about that is that we talk, we're avoiding some of the majority of the workforce in that we talk about return to office. But what about the frontline workers? What about workers that don't have an office to go to? What about workers that have to go in
Mm,
because, like you were talking about the dumpster,
yeah.
the rubbish. I lived in England, so I call it rubbish. Um, what about the employees at the supermarket?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, exactly.
my
I'm gonna work
family
from home
owns.
today. Goodbye.
Yeah, yeah, they can't work from home.
No.
You can't bag groceries from home unless you got
No.
the robot and you're. You
Just put
can't.
me on a Teams call in front of the counter. I'll serve them. No worries.
Yeah, I'll say hello, welcome. I'm.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yep, yep, yep. Do you see me now? Do you see me
Yeah,
now?
exactly, exactly, exactly.
But my family, we own the chain of grocery stores in Wisconsin and Illinois, and um, when COVID was around, the memes just went, viral because we're a 24/7 grocery store. And so, the memes were like the Titanic is going down and they compared our employees to the three musicians that were playing until the
Oh,
Titanic went down because they'll stick around because that's what they absolutely love to do. They want to be they want to be there. They want to be the people that are supporting the people that need the support.
yeah,
So
yeah,
they don't they their choice is to go into work every day and to be there to support the other parts of the population.
So, so just final note on that with AI, right? If you see AI as COVID, I'm not saying it's a pandemic. That's not what I'm trying to imply, but But do you think that we'll still want the human touch that way, and you still have someone who'll go in and someone who'll meet people? That's important, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that you'll want, as someone who's traveled throughout Europe by myself,
Mm.
and I always thought, oh, I'm gonna love this because I'm gonna, have time to think to myself and I can do whatever I want to. 1 or 2 days, and you're like, I need to talk to another human. I need to talk to another human being, uh,
Mm.
and not just the front desk person
No.
or not just the conductor on the train. So whether you're very, very introverted, whether you're going to go on and win alone, you're still going to want to have interaction with another human. That's just human nature.
Yeah. So, and that's not hyper personalization, right? That's not what we're talking about. That's not the kind of
Right.
personal stuff we're talking about, because that's unpersonal to some extent, right? That's frictionless, non-person. I'm saying that. But
Unless you have
Coreyne,
multiple personalities, and then that's
yes, no, but that's a completely different discussion again. Or you've been made, tons of GPTs with different personas. Anyway, but Corinne, this has been a really great chat. I really love talking to you. I think it's been a very what do you call it, pleasant discussion as well, touching upon a lot of different topics, coming back, moving out, coming back. I really think it's made me think about some things as well and some perspectives during the chat. And now I'd like to just ask you the final question of this podcast, which we always do. Um, so, Corinne, what is the only constant?
so. My belief that the only constant is the potential in people. So, what I mean by that is we're all human, we're all completely unique, we're all very resourceful, play on human resources there. Uh, and the human mind is very complex. And so we haven't even scratched the surface of our potential. Humans will continue to have potential. And just kind of as an example, um, we only know how only 10% of our brain works. We don't know about how the other 90% works. And when we use our brains, and they've done the imaging of this, we're only using 35% when we think about complex situations. So I'm not going to do public math here, but that there's another percentage that, again, like space, we haven't even tapped into yet. So again, that's why I went into human resources, because of that science behind the potential of people and what we can learn and how we can grow. A lot of people say to me, like, oh, Coreyne, you mean like humans are resilient? No, I don't mean resilient. I think, yes, humans are resilient, but I don't think we should always have to be resilient. I don't think that helps you grow. I think trauma, uh, you know, pushes us farther back from reaching our potential. Uh, and we have a lot of challenges, toxic cultures, lack of self care, bias, a lot of the stuff we've been talking about. But really, the science, again, going back to in the right setting with the right emphasis on your innate skills, with the right support, your potential is limitless.
So, potential is the answer. And that's a good
Mm-hmm.
one. I like that. Thank you for
Human
that, Corinne.
potential. Human potential is limitless.
Human potential. That's an important note to make in 2024. Thank you, Corinne. And thank you for being on The Only Constant. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Laz. Thank you for having me.
You've listened to The Only Constant, a podcast sponsored by Basico.